This.
Hey, what's going on, guys? So I'm doing a different video than most things that I usually do, and this is kind of be a deck profile, but it's not. I'm not talking about the deck and the build, so don't take this and be like, oh man, this is a deck profile. This deck sucks. I'm not using this as a deck profile. This is going to be called what I'm calling Dissecting Harpies. I'm going to have a lot of other ones talking about that, but this is kind of for new players or players that don't really give Harpies a time or time of place. I'm going to talk about what makes this deck tick and why it is what I think is a more well-rounded budget deck that you don't see a lot more people playing. I feel like if more people gave it a shot, 30 or 40 more people took it to a tournament, you'd see it maybe top a little bit more than you do right now. So let's talk about why this deck is good. So right off the bat, before we talk about any specific cards, the deck has consistency. Now, it's not the best consistency, but it has very good consistency to the degree that most rank 4 spam decks have. And this is a glorified rank 4 spam deck to a degree. So it has a better engine than most, and it has some other effects going for it at the same time. So let's get on with what makes this deck consistent. So right off the bat, a Harpie Queen. This is basically a free searcher. It's a free terraforming with for Harpie's Hunting Ground, but you have a 1900 beater, which with Harpie's Hunting Ground turns into a 2100 beater. Which beaters are not that great in the game than they used to be, but sometimes you just need that little extra oomph to get rid of a monster. Plus, it's a level 4 winged beast, so we can make our Xyz 4 plays. So right off the bat, that consistency right there, being able to play 3 Harpie's Hunting Ground, being able to play 3 Harpie's Queen, makes searchability for this card very easy and possible to have. So I'm not going to talk about the deck altogether because I don't want it to look like a deck profile, but Cyber Harpie Queen goes really well with Elegant Egotist, and that is really good for summoning and other things like that. So when we get on to the consistency even more, Harpies came out about a year ago or so, maybe a little bit more, and this card really made the deck go off. This is what made me think about Harpies as a more viable budget deck, and it was even being played pretty heavily a while back when this card was coming out. So if you don't know what this does, is when this card's normal summon, you can target a wing type beast monster that you control, and one face of monster your opponent controls and return them to hand. So it can get rid of a problem card on your opponent's side of the field, as well as also, you know, being able to have some consistency with it. So if you know what that means, is actually at the end of the phase, when this card's sent to the graveyard, you can add one level 4 wing type beast monster with 1500 less attack from your deck to your hand, which goes right around with Harpie Chancellor and Harpie Dancer. But Harpie Chancellor is another reason why this deck is consistent. But the thing is that's good about this card too is it just matters if it's detached in general. So if you just detach this from like a number 101 or a Castell, its effect goes off, which makes it a lot more viable than some other cards out there. Harpie's Chandler is what allows this to be a rank 4 deck. You can discard one Harpie card and special summon one Harpie monster from your deck, face up defense position, and you can only use this effect once per turn. And when there's a dragon on the field, it becomes that level 7. So if you pair it with Harpie's Pet Dragon, you can make rank 7s. Now, not everybody does this in their decks, and that's something when you want to build your Harpies deck, that's up to you. But that option and outlet is what gives the deck a little bit more oomph. So you don't always pull this off every time you play Harpies, but the fact that you can make a Mecha Phantom Beast Dracossack or a Big Eye, even though I wouldn't even play Dracossack, I'd probably take this out and just leave the Big Eye in. The fact that you can make a Big Eye in this deck gives it more power than what the deck already is capable of, because you can come back and make a level rank 4 with your Big Eye and make some problems for your opponent. So the fact that you have that at your disposal is such a good play, and not many decks are capable of making rank 7s and stuff like that at the same time without being a more meta deck. So the fact that this budget option has that makes it really great. Now, something that somebody says before to me is that this deck, while it is a rank 4 spam deck, it's not the fastest. And while it is not the fastest, if you pair it up something with like Summoner Monk to detach like Hysteric Sign, to pitch cards to bring out level 4s, or if you pair it up with Elegant Egotist. Now, a lot of people play Elegant Egotist in their Harpies deck. Some play 3 or 2, which I don't think you should, but if you play the 1, it's searchable through Hysteric Sign every time, plus you can just draw into it, and you can pop out a Harpie card, and that makes it great right off the bat. And that allows you to make more rank 4 plays. And you also have things like Instant Fusion to use, like Elder Entity Norden and stuff like that. Or you can make like a Malvolus, which I have done, to pull off some other 4 plays. So it's not like it's completely dead. It's not the fastest rank 4, but it has more consistency with it than other rank 4s. So that's where Harpie's Hunting Ground comes in. So not only does Harpie's Hunting Ground boost your attack and defense, like I already talked about, is it gives you a popping ability. Now, this popping ability is good for many ways. First of all, we play in a game right now where back row can still be a pain in the ass. Some people don't think back row is a pain in the ass, but I think back row is a pain in the ass. So this can fix some of that and get rid of your back row your opponent has, along with their pendulum cards, which can make you get over some other certain problems your opponent has. But on top of that, it allows you to pop Hysteric Sign. So when you use Hysteric Sign and you add that Elegant Egotist to your hand, you can then have it on the field and hope for it to be destroyed, or you can normal summon a Harpy monster, pop your own Hysteric Sign, and then at the end of the turn, you're going to get a search for 3 Harpy cards. You can thin out your deck so quick in this, along with the Harpie Queen, the Harpy's Hunting Ground, with Harpy's Harpist, Channeler, and then Hysteric Sign. You can search out all the cards you really need pretty quickly. And having this all, and it flows together well. So there's a lot of decks that have cards and they do specific things, but then there's not many budget decks that make it flow easily. And that's one thing I like about Harpies, is that everything has a place in the deck and it works well with the other cards perfectly. It might not do it in the most meta way, but it does it in a way that makes it very consistent. So you have your main cards, but then you do have some traps to make the deck go off even more. So you have cards like Icarus Attack, which isn't like for Harpies, even though it has a Harpy on it. You can use this with other Winged Beast monsters, but you can tribute a Winged type Beast monster and select 2 cards in the field and destroy them. It's not the best card in the world, especially in today's game, but when you pair it up with other meta cards, Icarus Attack is something that's really works well with Harpy cards, and you can really get rid of things that you just don't want to deal with. Destroying's not as good as it once was in the game, but it's still something to consider. Now, Hysteric Party is like an OTK beast. Some people play 3 or whatever. Once again, this isn't a deck profile, so it's just kind of like talking about the card, but you can activate this card just by discarding a card, and special summon as many copies of Harpy's Lady as possible from your graveyard. And if you're mid near the end of the game and you have 3 or 4 Harpies in the deck, you can really start to go off on your opponent and really destroy them. So if you had like an Icarus Attack face down but no Harpy cards, you special summon them, like 3 of them, then you use Icarus Attack, destroy some of your opponent's problem solving cards, use the other 2 Harpies Attack, and then Exceeds. It can go off pretty easily. So it can really give you an ability to have OTK ability along with just consistent playing against your opponent. Now, since it's rank 4 deck, can play all your rank 4s. We're not going to talk about those, and I already talked about can play Big Eye. But the cards that are really underrated is Harpy's Pet Phantasmal Dragon. Now, before people thought, like, yeah, you have to use 3 materials to get it, it's not that great of a card, and it's not the best. It's not the end of all cards, but it is a very decent card. I'm only playing 1 in this deck simply because I don't think you bring it out enough, but just the fact that this card can be attack your opponent directly, and your opponent cannot target any Harpy monsters with effects or attacks, including itself. It can really defend your field while you're trying to do other things, and the fact that it can not be destroyed or affected for attacks is just, well, not that it can't be destroyed, it just can't be targeted by attacks or effects. So it makes it decent. Now, if your opponent has a Dark Cold, then you're kind of fucked, but that's why it's not the end-all card. Now, this card is the card that is really underrated. I always call him Zephyroth. I don't think it is Zephyroth, but Ice Beast Zephyroth is the thing that a lot of people, I think, forget about this deck, what makes this deck so great. I've seen deck profiles where people only play 1, say it's awful, and I don't know where they got that. This deck, being able to play this, is what makes it come together even more. So you can play all your rank 4s, like I said, but this, you can attach 1 material from this card, negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls. If you do, this card gains 300 attack for each face-up card currently on the field, except this card. So you can get this into a huge beater and have all your opponent's things negated. And with everything else, like I already talked about, the flow of the deck, with Icarus Attack, with Harpy's Hunting Ground, with everything else going on, it just works so well so that your opponent won't have much of a response. And any response he did have, which was probably going to be a monster on the field, its effects don't even work anymore. And now you have this beater and you can just fuck him right up, and it works out flawlessly. Like I said, I'm only playing 2 because you still want room for your other cards to remove problems. But the fact that this card has this ability in this deck, it's just something that you can't see a lot of other people play. And this is what makes this a more, like I said, well-rounded budget deck that I think is higher tier than some of the other ones in this price range. So, let me know down below what you guys think. Like I said before, this isn't talking about how the deck's meta. It's talking about how I feel like if more people played it, you might see it top a little bit more. And the fact that it has the consistency that it does have and the cards that it does have, it makes some people a little bit more on edge when you play. So let me know down below what you guys think about Harpies. Do you think it is something that could be played more? Do you think it's something that has the potential, if they got even a little bit more support, to be meta? Let me know down below what your thoughts are. I'll see you later, guys. Peace.
Damn. Yeah.